There are so many moments in games that just stay with you forever. They become imprinted in your brain, a core memory that lingers and just really keeps a grip on you. It's one of those things where you beg people to play the game just to experience the same thing, so that way you can share those feelings, whether it's betrayal, sadness, shock, amazement, and it's the thing you 100% wish you could experience for the first time all over again. Here are some of my favorite memorable moments, and obviously this video has a blanket spoiler warning for these games. Every game is timestamped in the description below, so that way you can skip around if you need to. I love games where you get to make choices and influence the narrative. Good, memorable storytelling is obviously a huge necessity here, but equally important are the bonds that you make with the characters. TellTale's The Walking Dead Season 1 is an amazing example of this, and I actually played it for the first time very recently. I'd always heard how good it was, but also how intensely heartbreaking it could be. I didn't really know what to expect because I had never watched the show and I'd never read the comments, so I wasn't expecting to be really sad over the game, but oh man, I cried. Playing as Lee, a former teacher turned apocalypse survivor, you meet Clementine as you're escaping from the walkers. Through your quite harrowing introduction, you learn that Clem is actually alone, and you decide to help her survive as you take her under your wing and you promise to help her look for her parents. Throughout this journey, you meet other people, build or potentially destroy relationships, and of course, you also build your bond with Clementine. She is an 8-year-old girl who is scared and alone, and if you're too harsh with her, you're quite simply a monster. You only have each other to rely on after all, and that obviously makes you very close. It's a very sweet father-daughter type relationship, but one that is absolutely hell-bent on survival. You can imagine the absolute heartbreak that is felt after Lee gets bitten when him and Clementine get in the middle of the herd, with their realization that there are only two outcomes here. Either Clementine shoots Lee before he can turn, or she leaves him to turn, dooming him to his walker fate. Either way, it's incredibly traumatizing, and it's a very intense emotional moment, no matter what you choose, and the ending scene is a little bittersweet. I think the experience of having an intense, well-written, unpredictable twist is such an incredible one. Again, I love stories. I love reading, writing, I love experiencing deep, rich worlds, and getting to share in other people's creativity. When I first started this channel, I asked for games that I should absolutely play and experience, and the original Bioshock was recommended by almost everybody. Very impressively, I managed to avoid all the spoilers and stuff over the years. I think that with this kind of twist, everyone wants everyone else to have an unspoiled experience. So, courtesy extended, this is your absolute final warning for Bioshock story spoilers. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but when Atlas was revealed to be Frank Fontaine and the meaning behind the phrase "would you kindly" was explained, I feel like I went through all stages of grief. To have someone that was your constant companion through the game, that helped you and explained things and made you feel like you were really fighting the good fight against the apathetic narcissist that is Andrew Ryan and the world of Rapture, to only be revealed to be the criminal mastermind and con man that was just using you to get rid of Andrew Ryan, it was something that I did not see coming. At least not in the way it was done, especially since being given my next objective in the game that I had to do to progress the story was always prefaced by "would you kindly," and I just thought that it was a fun quirk of the character. I just knew there was something fishy going on the whole time, but I never thought that my freedom fighter friend Atlas would betray me. That whole sequence, meeting Andrew Ryan, listening to his monologue, getting activated by Atlas, who is really Frank, it was masterfully done. Definitely one of those things that I would love to experience for the first time all over again. But unless they invent and perfect selective memory erasure, I'm a little SOL. Speaking of betrayal, there were more than a couple of times where I felt betrayed in The Last of Us 2. In general, these are very emotional games with a deep and rich story, and the storytelling is done in such a way where everyone can find something to connect with. With a story that has that much depth and emotion, there are more than a few memorable moments in the game. The big one, obviously, is Joel's death. I was shocked. I didn't even really want to believe it, even though it happened right in front of me. I thought, maybe, even though it was so brutal and so obvious, maybe he wasn't dead. Maybe he was just in extended recovery. Joel had obviously changed as a person during the time between the two games, and that's very evident in the way that he automatically tried to help Abby. Maybe he felt differently because he was with Tommy. Maybe he just softened with age and comfortability. I know that that's been a point of discussion, but that moment where you're listening to Ellie scream for Joel and you're just watching helplessly as this beloved, complicated man was brutally murdered was real rough. I was mad at the situation. I was mad at Naughty Dog because how could they? And then I got to the point of acceptance. Just when I got comfortable, it was betrayal part 2, because now you expect me to play as Abby? I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand the storytelling and the intention behind making Abby the playable character. You see two sides of the same coin with Abby and Ellie. I get it, but I was so frustrated and annoyed. And in that moment, after, I had sworn revenge and processed my own anger, I felt so let down that I was being forced to try and understand the other side. The logical part of me understands, but the other half, the emotional half, was very mad. Still, it's very impressive to take such a big chance with such a polarizing play and put your faith in the players to understand the intention behind it and trust just enough to be cool with the decision. Begrudgingly so, maybe, but accepting. Sometimes when elements or plot devices or events happen, you obviously know that everything is ultimately going to be okay. That doesn't mean that the rest of your emotional side recognizes that. Sometimes the events feel very real and you actually can't believe what you just witnessed because it was something so intense that you really felt every second of it. I love the original Mass Effect trilogy and I have played it many times. But I think something that always gets me is the beginning of Mass Effect 2. The entire opening sequence is, in my opinion anyway, incredibly well done. The beginning dialogue with the as yet unknown Miranda and the elusive man immediately sets up the mystery and intrigue. Who are you people? What is Cerberus? I think you kind of feel like bad guys. Then, when the story continues, we're greeted with our very familiar and beloved Normandy, complete with the incredible Joker at the helm. It's very much your second home. After all, you spent all of the first game getting to know the crew and the ins and outs of the ship, so it was a little heartbreaking when you get attacked like 30 seconds in, and then it was even more heartbreaking when Shepard shoves Joker into the pod, ultimately sacrificing themselves to save Joker as the Normandy explodes. Watching Shep drift into space, suffocating, frantically pulling and grasping at their suit, was an incredible and shocking way to start this story, and I love going through the beginning every single time. In another life, I am a treasure hunter. I always envisioned kind of an Indiana Jones vibe, but obviously that dream did not pan out, so unsurprisingly, I love video games like Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones, and of course Uncharted. The Uncharted series is a long-time favorite, and I actually recently replayed the 4th game. I always enjoy going through a character's life with them and seeing how they've changed over the course of the series, and it's fun to see Nathan and Elena settling down in their life. But of course, adventure calls, and there is always one last job. Surprisingly, this one last job is given to Nathan by his suddenly back from the dead brother Sam. Turns out he's actually been alive this whole time, and he was freed from prison by a notorious drug lord, Hector Alcazar. Alcazar, of course, expects payment for this charitable act and wants the legendary pirate treasure that Sam has talked about for the entire imprisonment, and what he and Nathan were actually searching for in the intro sequence of the game. Nathan, like any good brother, agrees to help Sam avoid being brutally murdered by Hector by locating this treasure. In a wild lack of judgment, he lies to Elena about where he's headed and sets off with Sam and, of course, Victor Sullivan to locate the treasure. We've also learned that the original benefactor of the treasure hunt, Rafe, is also looking for the treasure. So not only are we in a race against time, we're also in a race against a rich boy and his hired army. When everyone finally meets up, because of course they do, Nate, again, good brother, begs Rafe to let them go because they need Avery's treasure to save Sam's life. He thought Sam was dead after all. He doesn't want that to happen for real. Nothing could have prepared me for Rafe revealing that Alcazar had been dead for 6 months. and it was Rafe who got Sam out of prison to resume the search for the treasure. Then Sam double-crossed Rafe to resume the search with his little brother. Our entire journey was based on a lie. I lied to my wife for you. I was legitimately mad at Sam for the whole entire thing, and I couldn't believe that he could do that to his younger brother. It was a whole entire mess of bad decisions and a very personal betrayal of trust. Everything, of course, shakes out in the end. After all, the good guys always win. But I was genuinely shocked at this reveal. I never had any indication through the game that there was something amiss, which of course is true of all of the best twists. I've been spending a lot of time now trying to catch up on all the recommendations that have been given to me, and that has required me to step out of my comfort zone in gaming. Enter Arkane's Prey. Not only was I stepping outside of my comfort zone in terms of story/genre, but also because I had never really played a game that encouraged the player to think outside the box as much as this one did. It was kind of refreshing in a way. Instead of being met with resistance, I was kind of able to break through walls or experiment and play in my own way, which I thought was really cool and very innovative. However, I really enjoyed the twists in this game. For starters, the beginning. I was really surprised when we smashed through our windows and instead of being like outside or in the apartment building, turns out we were in a very intricately designed studio, which obviously makes you immediately suspicious of everyone that you met in the intro sequence. But holy hell, this did not compare to my shock at the ending of the game. I knew something weird was going on, and I thought, honestly, by using the typhon powers, I was just essentially turning myself into some weird kind of hybrid typhon. I didn't know that I already was one. Arkane successfully pulled one over on me. I was so ready to accept that I, a genius scientist who had been studying the typhon, would suddenly be humanity's last hope, and I'd have to save everyone on board for real. I feel like that's a very tried and true trope in storytelling, so it just made sense to me, and I didn't really think much beyond it. I should have known that something that wanted me to break the rules was also shattering expectation of what's real and what's not. Having the ultimate reveal of the whole entire game being a simulation was crazy to me, but I think it was really well done, and I'm happy that I got to experience the twist unspoiled. There are times in long franchises when the main character gets a little bit of a break and upon their return have grown and changed. That is especially true of our veteran God of War, Kratos. By the time we see him in Midgard, he has completely changed. He's still got the incredibly commanding presence, but in the 2018 version, he's a lot more stoic and reserved. In the original games, Kratos was still a force to be reckoned with. The Ghost of Sparta was just an all-around angry dude. He walked around ancient Greece, wreaking havoc wherever he went. Understandable because of A, story reasons, and B, the Greek gods are kind of known for being manipulative assholes. So to see him suddenly a lot more refined and calculated was a change. Seeing him now with Atreus, navigating a very human existence was, well, nice for lack of a better term. Kratos has obviously changed here in more ways than one, and we see that through his actions and through flashbacks as he really tries to come to terms with the regrets of his past life. So when Atreus falls ill after giving into the seething rage that so often tormented his father, Kratos is only left with one choice: journey into Helheim to retrieve a guardian's heart. He knows that he has the one weapon that will get the job done in the frozen landscape of hell, and it's time to face the painful memories of his past. Getting the Blades of Chaos out and using them again, it brought out a lot of emotion. Though you obviously did not have to play the original series before this game, if you did, it definitely felt like a familiar pain. The Blades of Chaos are a painful reminder of a different time in Kratos' life, and he has to face that reminder in order to overcome that and do what needs to be done to save his son. I think that the moment in the story, I think it's like the halfway point, illustrates how important they are to Kratos, and that Santa Monica Studios knows how important they are to longtime fans of the series. It's a really nice full circle moment for God of War's lineage, and everything works together to make this a fantastic bit of storytelling and incredibly nostalgic. I don't think there are a lot of games that I hear about that seem quite as renowned or revered as Red Dead Redemption 2. For good reason. It's a long game, with complex characters and a massive environment that feels incredibly immersive, and it's got a very well-written story. Red Dead 2 is one of those games where the sequel title is actually the prequel for the previous game. The events of Red Dead 2 lead into the story of the first game, only this time you're taking up the mantle of Arthur Morgan. Your actions and the way that you choose to play Arthur have an influence on his overall character and ultimately his final moments. Going through this game, seeing the gang slowly unravel, mostly thanks to Micah and his influence over Dutch, alongside Arthur's declining health, feels like such an incredibly personal experience. I think this is honestly a testament to how well written these characters are. They all feel like complex, marred individuals, which gives them a healthy dose of humanity. They're not just characters in a video game, these are real people with real trust issues, and the way they all interact is so familiar because it's so human. When we finally reach the end of the game, the final scene with Arthur is really determined by your actions. Did you act with integrity? Try to turn over a new leaf, perhaps? Or did you head in the opposite direction, falling victim to your own greed and moral depravity? If you acted with honor, Arthur gets a relatively peaceful death, finally convincing Dutch of Micah's betrayal and watching the sunset one last time as he finally succumbs to tuberculosis. While of course this scene leaves a mark on you, maybe in the form of tears, that's okay, this is not exactly what makes it such a momentous ending. It's the way everything shakes out. Like I said, it's incredibly well written. You spent hours with Arthur and the gang building out these bonds and relationships and making yourself into a better man, and it all just kind of ends. And then you have the epilogue and you realize that ultimately this is all just a cycle. Arthur and John are two men who are essentially undone by their past, no matter how much they try to atone or change. The story is so good because of how unapologetically human it is and how it really forces you to come face to face with the chaos and complexity of freedom and forgiveness. Not to become too philosophical or anything, we'll save that deep dive for another video. There's obviously a few more memorable moments that I could talk about, but I would actually love to hear some of yours. What were some of your favorite moments in gaming? What really stuck with you? And what are some things that I should definitely play so I'm not missing out? Make sure to leave a comment letting me know. As always, thank you for hanging out, and I will see you guys in the next one.